I relatable as a leader? Regardless of reports and management style and a company's mission, vision, values, am I a leader? Am I trying to grow something? It's important to know what your mission is and how it aligns with your company's before you start looking for strategies.
You're listening to the Sherpa Leadership Podcast, your guide to climbing higher in life and leadership. I'm Reed Moore, and alongside Chase Williams, we're here to help you break through obstacles, scale your potential, and lead with greater clarity and purpose. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sherpa Leadership Podcast. You're here with myself, Reed Moore, as well as my co-host, Chase Williams. And as always, we are here to help you climb higher in life and leadership. For all of our action guides and our past episodes, go to sherpaconsultinggroup.com. We love providing resources for leaders just like yourself. And we are here today with a fantastic leader, an incredible friend of Chase and myself. What's his name?
Michael Schramm.
Mike
Schramm, as we like to call him, or Big Mike.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm excited.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about what you do. Like, what's your area of profession and how long you've been doing it?
Yeah, so I've been with a large company that is packaging distribution. Mm-hmm. We're based out of Atlanta. I'm a satellite employee up here and just outside of Spokane, Washington. I've been there for 8 years. And what I do is corporate account management, national accounts, large account management. I think every big company probably calls it something a little different. Mm-hmm. So I've been there for 8 years. And then prior to that, I was at a company called C.H. Robinson for 10 years, where I did a similar job, but I kind of worked my way up from like an entry level. It was a broker position is what it was. And I had, I think, 6 different roles in 10 years and made a leap to another large company. So I like to say I'm a W-2 guy. I'm not Mr. Entrepreneur. I've been with big companies now for 18, 19, 20 years, something like that now. And I've really enjoyed it.
There's this different flavor that we get when somebody's in a nonprofit or they're entrepreneurs or they're in large, Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies. There's just different flavors of leadership. And one of the things that Chase and I have always been excited about our relationship with you is you, more than anybody that I know, embody the topic today. Just watching you naturally operate in this area of valuing results and relationships. I just want to pick your brain on it because I think you're honestly a savant when it comes to this.
Well, I appreciate it. A little surprised, but I'm looking forward to some of the questions inside of it.
Well, I would say I agree, right? Because not only do we get to watch that being in relationship with Mike and how he really does this incredibly well with others, but we get to feel it. Right?
Yes.
Like we get to feel how much he values relationships. And we've had a little bit of conversation with you about this even before getting here today on the podcast. And what Reed said about it being natural, I think, is real as well. Because it's like, and we're going to do our best to kind of draw out, like, how does this actually look? And why did you start thinking about this? And now you're teaching it to your kids. And anytime we ever have a conversation around it, it's like, well, I don't know, it's just kind of natural. And of course, some of that's true. But when you put this into practice, I think that there's something that can be learned here by anyone listening. And so when you think about valuing results and relationships, Mike, why do you think that it's important to think about both in the first place?
The first thing I'll say, great and good question. I think the first thing I'll say is that it depends on where you're at in your career. Because I remember when I was at my first big company, at my first what we called a real job, where I had like a 401k and I didn't know what that was. So I think about that part was that I had to have results to pay bills. Sure. I had to have results and I had a manager. I didn't think about leadership. I had to figure out how to contribute because I wanted to keep my job and make my job and make money that way and hopefully grow inside of an organization or whatever it was. As I've kind of furthered inside that career, or anyone's career that I would be working with, is that you have a little bit more freedom inside of that framework, so to speak, of a large company. And so hope that kind of helps frame like where my head hears the question is where are you at inside of it? So.
Yeah, it could depend.
Yeah. So being in the world that you're in, you have to get results, right? So what kind of pressures are you under to get results? Like what's your, at this point in your career, My guess is you're working on succeeding personally, but you also have to succeed through others. So what's the lay of the land?
So I would say, and again, I'm going to give you kind of a larger organizational perspective.
Yeah.
It's kind of my perspective. That's all my experience is. So I don't really have anything outside of that.
Perfect.
And so I would say before you get to financial results or sales or anything like that, you also have company expectations. So you have the mission, the vision, the value of the company that they're setting forward. And then you have an executive team and a board that works with them. And they might have specific results inside of that mission, vision, values, or however you dissect that. And so, for instance, a specific one could be that you want margin enhancement for a year. You want to really focus on margin, less about what's coming in the boat, but like how do we really profitize or make whatever's in the boat more profitable, let's say. It could be on growing relationships in the market. So maybe it's more of a top line revenue push where you really want more of those fish coming in the boat. And so I think that's the first thing I would think of. And then you have individual goals. That's actually your individual goals for Mike Schramm, individual goals for you individuals or whoever it is. And so then you have financial goals. You might have goals to make sure that your customers are paying on time. You might have goals that actually they want to get more specific on how much inventory you carry or whatever your organization might be focused on. And so I'd probably put it in those three different buckets for the time being.
So results, my experience has been that results can create tension in relationships, right? And we were talking earlier this week, and one of those things that can happen is the results that create tension in relationships can also, if we don't balance and we don't live inside that tension, the relationships can actually over time deteriorate the results. Right. So how do you think about that as somebody? So you lead a team, right? How do you think about all of these pressures that you have as a leader and as an individual performer? How do you think of those and also think of the relationships?
So great question again. So I would say I'm going to take some notes while I do this so I don't leave anything out. So I would say the role I'm in right now. I started in as an individual contributor. I moved out of a leadership and a management role as more of an individual contributor. I still was a leader. I still looked after the folks to the left and right of me. But I would say that with that perspective I had, I definitely have I started kind of creating a team around me. Okay. And so the support roles that are in an organization, the customer service person, I would start really kind of putting my arm around those folks and making sure that they were mine. I made sure to take care of them, make sure they were mine. And with that responsibility, you've got to start, you kind of have a dotted line to leading those people. All these support. And so now the team has grown to, let's say it's 10 people, and you have all these dotted lines everywhere, but you're still a leader as a person and a contributor. And so I think part of it is not just focusing on the scorecard today, the scorecard for the month or the quarter, but what is that person's trajectory? How does it look for the year? And there's little caveats to all of this, right? So if you see any employee or a team member that has got maybe a personal issue, they're falling off for some reason, in some respect, that's another opportunity to kind of bump people back in line. And there's different strategies to do that. Sure. But I would say really trying to manage a team that you've created is to really focus on where they're going long term, as long as that they want to be in the boat long term. If they want to be in the boat long term, and we think they have the right character and they have the right drive. If they want to be in that boat, how do we keep improving them and not looking so short-sighted and really starting to look at long term, where can this person be? And so
So you said something that I want to go back to because you just said it like everybody knows this. But not everybody does, and that is like, well, you just take care of this person to your right, and take care of this person to your left, and you just take care. What in the world does that mean? Like, how do you do that?
Well, I think I've always bought into this thing with leadership. When I was younger and younger in my career, I really thought leadership was the role. I thought leadership was, hey, I'm a manager now. That means I'm a leader because someone told me I was. And then as I've kind of matured through that a little bit, I realized that it wasn't. You don't have to have X amount of people report to you to call yourself a leader. If you're taking care of the folks to the left and right, and I think I stole that that's probably a Simon Sinek thing I stole or something. But what
We all
that
steal
is
all the good stuff.
I think
That's why we do this podcast.
any employee that makes the decision that's conscious of actually taking care of people and actually looking after their needs prior to yours, I think is really important. And that's kind of where and this is probably a different fork in the road, but like I'm a Christian, and so me and my family follow Jesus. Yeah. And so because of that, that's the first guiding light, right? That's where I'm going first, and that requires me to make sure I'm taking care of others before I take care of myself. And it's the same kind of principle. Servant leadership, I think, started with that. Everyone remembers the craze of servant leadership. Yeah. And so it's the same idea as making sure that you're looking after other folks, whether they're on your team, whether they have a direct line, dotted line, whatever it might be, making sure you're really looking after the folks next to you.
Got it.
Hope that answers your
question. So what are some practical ways, like when you're in business and you have to, like, you are hired to drive something forward, especially in a big company, right? But now I need to take care of people to truly value the relationships. What does that look like on a daily basis?
So I would say always engaging them outside of the business that you and they are managing together. So what I mean by that, more specifically, is that if I mentioned how I'm in corporate account management or large account management, where you have big business that an organization kind of surrounds you with, if all of my conversations are about that business with 10 people that I work with every day, I'm going to be exhausting, and I'm going to be exhausted every day. And so part of that is making sure you understand their drivers as people. And not all conversations have to have intention.
Okay. Yeah.
And say more about that.
Yeah.
And so what I mean by that is that sometimes people talk about the personal part of business like it's a strategic to get more business. Or the reason I'm talking to him about his boat trip is that hopefully he thinks of me with this, and it tees up to me having an opportunity later. Sometimes you call people because you want to call them. Because you got a calling in you, in your heart, or whatever it might be, and whatever your belief system is, that hey, I gotta reach out to a team member, see how their weekend was. I know they mentioned briefly they had a date night planned with their husband.
Yeah.
They might mention later they're going fishing, with their son next week. Sometimes it's just not about business, and I want to check in, see how things are going. It's nice to have more of connectivity than just the business you're leading and managing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
well,
really good.
my hallucination is the reason that creates deep relationship is there's a lot more to people's life than what they do for a living. Even when that's an important part, right? Even when it's something they love and it's something that they give effort to and they have passion around, there's all these other things in life that exist for all of us. And so if you know some of those things, you mentioned key drivers, things that are important to Mike Schramm that have nothing to do with the work we do together. All of a sudden, my hallucination again is that it's demonstrating that you care about them far above, rather, like whatever result we're going to get in the business. Because we're going to have plenty of time to talk about that. So we don't need purpose to this conversation other than, I care about you. I'm curious about what you did on the weekend or what lure you were catching the fish on or whatever it was, right?
And I think that to add one more thing to that is there's a reality of urgency in business, whether it's big, small, I don't care what size it is, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you can't just have that personal call. You can't spend that 20 minutes with someone to connect on what they did for the weekend or what they did, in the evening or whatever it might be. Sometimes there's the reality of the urgent, where it's like, hey, I need this done immediately for our business. Sure. I want to talk about that stuff. But that's just something to think about. There is times where it's a balancing act in this. And so it comes down to, are you related? Am I relatable as a leader? Regardless of reports and management style and a company's mission, vision, values, am I a leader? Am I trying to grow something? And then before you started with an organization's goals and like the pressures there, and we can talk more on that too. But sure. I think as you mature in business, you start to have to ask yourself, like, what's my mission, vision, and value? And I think that's just a phrase that I've stolen through years of being corporatized and working for larger companies, but. What's mine? So mine in my family, right, is that I want to be a servant leader. I've identified that, and I want to have a personal mission. Like I want more than just the results. And I've just been blessed to have really great results, very consistent. And I can only assume that some of that is a gift from the Lord. It's not just because of what I do every day. And it's not even just our team and how amazing the team that I get to work with is every day. A lot of this could be, how we're being blessed because we're being good stewards of the business we get to manage and things like that.
So let's say you have somebody and they're like they're driving for results. Maybe they're even getting results and they're younger in their career, right? And you're watching them, you're thinking like you're driving for results now, but if you don't figure out this other element, this is not going to last.
Yeah.
But they can't understand that because it's not. If you don't think that way, maybe it's not very intuitive, because you're just like it's a meritocracy, right? Like that's how the world should work. How do you talk to somebody like that?
So I'm going to give you a bunch of broad brushstrokes. The things that I think about, one is that what were the expectations set when that person came in the door immediately? Do they know what that relationship with the leadership, the Reed Moore, the Chase Williams, do they know what that relationship is going to look like? That's the first thing I think about. And then are those goals written down for them and tracked regularly? So the one good thing, in big companies like the ones I've worked with, we have systems to do this. Right, it's like the people tease about Salesforce and other CRMs that manage opportunities and things like that. But the truth is, there's the same thing on the HR side, which helps manage the relationship with those employees. Not that I'm a systems guy by any means, as far as IT systems here. Like I'm not the guy on your podcast to talk about that. But one thing I would say is that if you set it up to where goals are regularly reviewed, you have time set aside for those conversations that's really more driven to the metrics. And so that's your measuring conversations that you have every week. Mm-hmm. And so what I see a lot of leaders do is try to shove all of their leadership into a 30-minute slot every week. And the truth is you don't have time. 30 minutes is never enough. Mm-hmm, right. And honestly, then you're going to change it to an hour, and an hour is not going to be enough. So you got to have, it's better to have multiple smaller meetings on the calendar, touch bases, and make sure that those calendared meetings are actually have an agenda. That's something that I lack greatly. I'll have a meeting that just says the name of the customer. I'm like, I don't even know what this was. I don't even know what I'm talking about today. That's unfair for the audience. It's unfair for you, and in this case, the employee.
Yeah.
And so to try to bulletize this a little bit, because right now I'm painting those brush strokes. I would say that as long as that employee comes into the door and there's an expectation for results, there's a mission for the organization that he was hired into or she was hired into to drive financial results or whatever those individual goals are. I think where we go sideways is when we try to put too much in each of our conversations with our team. We're trying to make everything land and everything important. That 30-minute call, I made up, you didn't say 30 minutes, but
yeah, I get it.
You have a 30-minute meeting with if you have 20 people, let's say, in the organization that are reporting up, you're trying to take 30 minutes in a week to talk about what's going on in the marketplace, let's say. And then, hey, how was your weekend? And that lasts 3 seconds because you've got so many bullet points to get to motor through, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, hey, your goals are down this month. It is one big sandwich meeting of challenge, right? And so if you kind of set out little bits of time, like everyone kind of, I'm going to exhaust you on the calendar thing, 'cause this is one of my pet peeves, but like everyone only can go into Outlook or whatever system you use and put 30 minutes or an hour in. It's like they don't know, there's no other time frame that exists.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing wrong with 10 minutes.
Sure.
Or less or more, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing wrong with that. And say like, hey, let's talk about your goals right now. I see you're struggling last month. I just want to focus on how your production looks. What are you doing? How can I support you? And a lot of the times what you'll find out in those little meetings that they're going to come prepared for that discussion with goals. And when they do that, when they come prepared with it, you might uncover like, oh, they're not getting the support I told them I was going to give them. It's not them, it's me.
Yeah.
Right? Or it's something similar to that. And so just as a suggestion, something that I've personally done, I love dialing out the week like that, but I do think it's necessary to have very focused meetings so everyone knows what you're talking about.
I love it. I love the idea of so Juliet Funt is somebody I've listened to recently, and she talks about putting wedges in your day, which is instead of having all these 30-minute meetings, like put a wedge in there of 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes for connection, for all of these different things. And for the relationship side, I love the idea that a relationship doesn't just develop and happen in 30 minutes. Like we can hit it, we can talk about goals or metrics or whatever in this very structured time block. But if I have a wedge and I walk around the office, or I'm thinking about somebody, I can pull them aside and be like, hey, how's it going? And if I can do those kind of things throughout the day, I have more of a rhythm of relationship that I can add into the mix.
Yeah, the way that I was taught it, or heard it, I guess, and so learned it that way, was it's called leadership by walking around, which is the opposite of a structured agenda meeting so that we can be efficient, right? Leadership by walking around is like, I'm going to take 10 or 15 minutes in between meetings. And hey, Reed, how was your weekend, right, man? You said you were going fishing. What'd you catch them on, right? How was date night last night? You mentioned that you were taking your wife to a new spot. So it's like this idea of like I'm authentically, but even though it's in my calendar, taking time to not have an agenda, just like you said, not every conversation has to have a purpose other than like I care about the people around me and I want to know what's going on in their life. Or if I notice someone that morning in the meeting that like seemed a little off or down energy wise, I can say, hey man, how's it going? Everything going okay? You doing all right? Anything I can help you with? And so that was this idea of like really structured meetings versus like, no, we're just being in relationship for a few minutes here.
Yeah.
Right.
So I act like I prescribed this idea of calendaring your day, but I'll tell you what, I make fun of it more than I probably do it myself. And another broad brushstroke I'll paint over the top of what I just said is that there's nothing more exhausting than when you try to get a hold of someone because you do have some urgency. Let's say you have an urgent matter, and it's not going to be usually goal driven, because if goal conversations shouldn't be so urgent.
Right. Generally not.
You should, I mean, as long as you're staying connected with people, like you should know where they're at. And they should know where they're at as well.
Sure.
But the brushstroke that I'll give is that when you reach out to someone and then they say, hey, I'm in back-to-back meetings for 12 hours today. I think that's crazy. And so, and don't get me wrong, I've been the guy, and I honestly, I think I'm that guy on Wednesday. And so,
yeah.
Right? And so, but I don't want to ever be so busy that someone can't reach out. And this is where I get those 10 and 15, 20-minute meetings as opposed to 30, where I can't shove in a 10-minute conversation with someone that wants to follow up with something that's on their heart, on their mind, that's affecting their day-to-day. I also, so again, I know I'm going both directions on this. I probably sound inconsistent.
Well, it's the tension we're talking about, right?
Exactly. And this is exactly. And so like, this is it's like, you can't be just the guy that walks around all day.
Yeah.
You got to have some professionalism
Structure,
to your leadership, right? It's a skill you're building. It's not just the God-given, hey, this guy's a people person. If you remember that phrase, that used to be common. You don't hear that anymore. Yeah. But like leadership, again, it's a choice. And so we've got to also, inside, there's decision making. If you're going to be a leader or a manager or whatever it might be, you also have to make a decision like, what is your strategy? Knowing that the other side, not everything can be a strategy.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to be the person that's not available for 10 minutes to follow up on a large opportunity or something that they need help with, or it's a new part of their business that they just really want some direction from you. You want to be able to give it to them.
Sure.
You want to be able to say, it's not going to be immediate always, but you want to say like, hey, I got 15 minutes after lunch. Let's connect really quick. Let's kind of work it out. And then if we have to follow up, let's do it here.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the tension, right? It's this idea of results, which can be usually pretty easily measured, right? That doesn't mean they're everything. It's just they're more black and white versus relationship, which is not black and white, right?
Sure.
Our idea of relationship might be different. How much relationship? What does that actually require of each other? Like there's this art and science of leadership, right? Which is why that tension exists. It's also why the topic is values, results, and relationships. Yeah. It's never an either or. But I have a question for you here, Mike, and it's when have you seen where like a great relationship with someone you work with has become valuable when they're not getting the results?
Yeah.
That maybe they need to, or they're supposed to, or maybe they've even gotten them before, but we're in this space where like I'm leading someone and they're not getting the results that they need to get for their role. And if I have the relationship, what's the value there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're probably tugging at some heartstrings a little bit, because I'm a person that has unfortunately had to let go some of my best friends before, which is terrible feeling.
Sure.
Right. It's awful. And so because if you choose to look after those folks in the left and right, you develop good relationships, and sometimes you just have like interests.
Sure.
And that personal might grow a little bit better than the professional does.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, and let's say that the results aren't coming and you're doing the right things you feel like, and you're having those conversations and you're kind of scheduling out to make sure that they're supported, and it just doesn't happen. Unfortunately, there's a process to that. And you got to start, you have to start having more conversations about productivity. And usually you learn something inside of that. You usually learn like, hey, I'm not into it. I got a lot of personal stuff going on, or I have another opportunity, or there's usually a story to that I feel like you can pull out. And that's something that would probably to better answer your question. That's what I'll get out of a personal relationship is here. What's the reality?
Right.
What is the reality behind the production? And so I think that's where it's letting go of a person that's a personal relationship is never fun. It is always hard. You cry at home with your wife.
Yeah.
It's anyone that ever tells you that they enjoy the process, I wouldn't trust them.
I always thought it would be. I always thought it'd be so easy to be a sociopath in business.
No. I mean, I'm a softie. I'm a soft. Letting go of people is tough. It's lives we're talking about. But if you do have that, to better answer that though, if you do have a personal relationship, at least you're speaking to someone's heart. A little bit more than to soften this podcast up, but like you're speaking to someone's heart and their family a little bit more than just the facts.
Yeah.
And you're trying to understand what's going on because you do want those folks to do well and hope. And usually they do. Usually you find out that when they call, and they're going to call you afterward and find out what they're doing next. And hey, that was a good step. And every great leader has said the phrase, oh, we should have done this a year earlier.
Oh, yeah.
If you knew it was going to happen, you should have had that conversation earlier. And so.
My thought, right, is you're going to have a much better chance truly understanding what's going on with that person in that season or that moment that's causing them not to get results. Because it's almost always the thing behind the thing. Like you said, something tough's going on in life, or there's another opportunity maybe they've been thinking about, or whatever it may be. But if I can't get past the surface of all we do is get results together to find out, hey, what's going on with Mike, then I just have less of a chance of serving, helping you get over the hump, whatever it may be. Yeah. And so, like you're sharing there, it's like it makes it in some ways a lot harder.
Yes.
When you have to make really hard decisions.
Absolutely.
But if you truly want to serve someone, then how do you do that without being in a relationship with them, right?
Well, and it's not like one works and the other one doesn't. And that's something to think about too, because I've seen some of the best leaders get too involved, and I've seen some amazing leaders create a lot of space between their teams.
Sure.
And you've seen them successful, and that's probably a good thing to probably dive into as well. Is that this is we have the opportunity to talk scholastically about leadership.
Sure.
When you sit down and actually think about it, and then when you're in the weeds and you're in the thick of it, sometimes you don't have the time, you don't have the bandwidth to do this. I mean, there's 1,000 different YouTube videos, and I've listened to let's say half of them, and I've listened to them on
1,000
on like the challenges leaders have, and one that we always tease about is that he was a great contributor, so they put him in a leadership role.
Sure.
And it's really chalked up, I would say, more of and I say scholastic because I don't know what else to say with that, but like more of a professional perspective on that. And I laugh at those findings because it's like, the person that hired him in that role probably knew that, but his brains are blowing out right now. He's got too much going on. He knew this was a Band-Aid, and Band-Aids are a bad thing. We get it, in business, but the truth is, he had to get on the other side of something. And so I see probably the softer side of like, there's reasons that these things happen.
Yeah. Well, I think about, if you go the direction of saying, yes, it actually matters in healthy leadership to value results and relationships, you're intentionally choosing a harder path. You're choosing to have enough relationship where it matters and it hurts when you have to have hard conversations, when you have to let somebody go. And kind of what I think I heard from you before is maybe there's a, there's almost like a a scale or a scope of people's leadership where some people are going to naturally not be as deep into the relationship, but if they're consistent, they're going to consistently attract people that is kind of the nature of the relationship, and you're going to have people that are far deeper down that well of relationship.
Yeah.
And somebody who's more transactional is not going to be a good fit, even if they're a tremendous leader.
Sure.
Right? There's going to be some variant between the way that we all operate and still live in the tension.
So like the word that comes to my mind is boundaries. Right? Or like depth of conversation is the way you, or a relationship rather. Depth of relationship is the way you said it. So like when you're so naturally gifted at building great relationships with people, and we talked a little bit about the value that brings when we also need to talk about results on occasion because we work together. How do you set the right boundaries, or how have you seen this done well or not well, even in your experience around like, hey, we're in a relationship, but we're in this kind of relationship, right? Because I've seen that challenges can come up there, right? Like you're talking about, Reed. It's like, hey, relationship looks like this in our organization, and someone joins who thinks that they're going to spend every evening and be best friends with everyone they work with, and that's not kind of the norm.
Right.
All of a sudden, they're like, oh, I don't have a relationship here.
Right.
So how do you navigate those boundaries and just the differences that show up with people?
So when I was in college, starting a business that I hired all my buddies was like the best idea I thought I ever had. And unfortunately, I didn't do that. I didn't have that opportunity. But I would say that I've done it right and wrong both times. I've probably had too much personal relationship where it was really hard to manage the tactical business, and it was hard to set expectations because it's a buddy. And I would say that I've had a history of getting there. This was not like a class I took or the books that I read that I've just changed something. I think a lot of this was probably bad experience, which a lot of it felt bad. And it got me to a point where I could figure out how to set better expectations on the front end of a business relationship. Because I still, no matter what, I'm a personal guy. I want to hear about your weekend genuinely.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes those conversations as leaders take us out of the business for a minute to talk about that fishing trip and talk about, you know, and it's funny, we use fishing trip 10 times in this as an example. I go fishing twice a year.
Yeah.
I wish I could talk to someone about their fishing trip every week.
Maybe you should ask more questions.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's so, but I mean, I would say that's kind of the first angle I would look at. The second one is you mentioned it's a gift, and I do appreciate that. And I've had to, you know, and some of you guys know a personal side is that I've had to kind of wrestle with like, if it is a gift, what does that mean? But I don't want to take away from the effort to train that as well.
Yeah.
Because I really have spent a lot of time of being intentional about creating relationships.
Yeah.
And it's something you mentioned, I think earlier, but like I make sure my kids are prepared to do that as well.
Yeah.
And coaching my kids on how this is how you start to build a community. Not so much in business, but really more in like, this is how you create a relationship, and what does humility play in this? And this is how you do it. And actually the tell, show, do model shows up, if you're familiar with that, where like, I'm going to tell them how to do it. I'm going to show them how I do it, and I want them to do it, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah. So let's say you're raising up a young leader, and that person's they're right up underneath your leadership, and they are results, and they're kind of like burning people up, right? Relationally, it's like, hey, you got a second, great. Here's the thing I need from you. Thanks, bye.
Yeah.
Right. How do you hold their hand? Let's just say they're teachable, and how do you say like, okay, this is what it looks like to start adding the relational value into your leadership?
Yeah, and I have some indirect experience with this more recently, actually. And so what I'll say is that you would have known, and it's hard to, that's like a 3 dimensions there. And so if I'm the leader that's really coaching the person up, right, that personal aspect of it, I would say that this wasn't alien to me when we started this relationship. Results people don't just get born, right, when they're 35 and they're like, you knew about it the day you hired them, and it's 5 years later, and now you're in this spot, right?
Fair enough.
Fair enough. And so I would say 2 things, and I'm going to do my best to answer it, but I want to offer some watch outs first. So the first one is that you have to do this very carefully. And as you pull someone into that, hey, you've got to start working on the second dimension. You've got the results part. Usually those people are fantastic at that. you want to start pulling that dimension of the relational part of being a leader into them. But while you do it, the team that you do it with, you can't start being the relational guy. You can't have results guy and relational guy. And I think you can. I just don't, I think we're not really filling out what we have, our capacity.
Okay.
Right? I think we need to be able to do good in both of those areas.
Okay.
And so if I start saying, hey team, I know he's really into result. We know you're working hard right now and he's really results driven. They're going to start coming to me. So it might feel good. Doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that that's the answer. The answer is if you're a leader, you're training other leaders to take that role. You need to start having him do that or her do that skill. And I would, again, just like I would with my kids, I would start doing the tell, the show, the do, whatever order you want. Doesn't matter to me. But I would start really showing them like, hey, this is how I enter these conversations. I want you to try this with me. Every good salesperson when they start, if they have a good sales management structure and leadership structure, they do a lot of rehearsing. You're always rehearsing. And so if you remember when people used to call customers every day and hit a number of calls, you're developing skills doing that. It's very similar. Like we stopped doing that in those entry level roles, but like we need to do that as leaders too. We need to actually put the boots to the ground and actually say like, hey, let's practice this together. Like, what is this conversation going to look like? Like, hey, right now you're all results. Like the only thing your team has heard from you is on driving results, is on getting in line. It's the other initiative you gave them this week. And so if we don't start practicing how to like open up and broaden your leadership a little bit, I think you're going to be in for a rough run. And so that might have been a little rough, but there's some really aspects I want to share with that.
Well, and if I was going to draw out a couple of examples, right? I think first you said, hey, don't if you're leading someone like this, don't put yourself in a position of like, hey, I'm the safe place and that person's developing.
Because you talk to mom and dad.
Mom and dad, right? You can cut them off at the knees, even if it's accidental, in a real hurry and actually stunt their development. The other thing is, I think as a leader, what I heard you say, this kind of tell, show, do, is you could even ask someone good questions, right? If I said, hey, Reed, let me ask you something. Of all the people that you lead, I know that you know their numbers. I know I could ask them to you right now. You know exactly where they're at towards goal. But let me ask you, do you know their kids' names? Do you know what's most important in their lives outside of work right now? And if the answer is no, then... well, let's talk about how you might learn some of that stuff about the people that you want to develop relationships with, right? So you're showing like, here's some examples, right? And practicing, just like you said, it's almost like we can role play how you can have a 10-minute conversation with Mike without asking him about his numbers.
Yes, yeah.
As silly as it sounds, it's like, no, that's how you develop some of those skills if someone naturally leans one way or the other. And it's the one thing we haven't really touched on too much yet, but there's a real danger in either one of these being overdeveloped, right? So I think the danger in being overdeveloped on results we've kind of covered. What if we're overdeveloped on relationship?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And results kind of fall to the wayside. What's the risk there in leadership?
Well, there is no risk. I think that's the way to be because I think I'm obviously trying to be funny. I think that's probably my natural inclination. That's my natural. I have a propensity for that, let's say, but I have a draw to it at least. And so, I've done it a couple different ways. And so I would say that I went on this pendulum where I was probably too far on the relational side. And I was always, I was the shoulder to cry on, so to speak, from a business perspective, but it wasn't helping my goals and results. And then I was an individual contributor where I was all based on driving those finances, driving whatever goals the company gave me, because that's what mattered. That's what was on the scorecard.
Yeah.
I'm a scorecard guy. If it's written down and it's a goal, that's what I want to reach. And so I would say, again, a lot of this is experience. And so it's probably not great if you're listening to get like these are the 5 steps to get over that. I probably don't have that. I just know my experience says that you have to try to start in a balanced space. If you feel yourself going one way or the other, I think you've got to just be careful and kind of be reserved with that, and start taking notes. Start taking notes on like, hey, I'm really good at driving these things over here, but I'm having a hard time on the relational side, or the vice versa is what you asked. But like the relational side's easy. I love talking to my team about all these things, but I mean, after that, I really don't want to hear about the goals this week, And so again, it's a little gooey, but I would say that that's pretty important is being able to balance the two and taking notes of where you have a propensity to go.
Yeah.
It makes me think that there's this probably a really hard ditches to stay out of, and that is if I'm highly biased in one way or the other, if I don't pay attention to this tension, it will become a compulsion. And as soon as I am compelled to constantly look at the world through the lens of results only, any correction, any change, any softening looks like an attack on what I would consider reality or truth, when that's not what it is at all. So I just think back about times where I've been this way or I've experienced this. We have people listening to a podcast like this because they want to grow, and one of the best ways I found to not grow is when you get compulsive around whatever your bias is.
Yeah, that self-reflection piece that you encouraged, right? This idea of like pay attention to which way you lean, because chances are everyone listening leans one way or the other, either a little or a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? There's probably no one listening. It's certainly not the three of us that's like, I'm right in the middle
Passing
of both
through.
of these things, right? Like I value both of these things equally, like, and we want to strive toward being closer to that, given the situation. But like, that's really great advice. I don't want people to miss that. It's like, you should know which way you lean, and you should actively work on developing the other from day one. Rather than this idea that like, this is the only way, this is the only thing that matters, or I'm great at both.
I think I've given you like 3 of the day one answers, which isn't fair, right? It's like, tell us how to do this. It's like, well, you should have known before. That's not a fair answer, right? But I do think what you're hearing is probably some pain, right? Because I've done it the way where I had great personal relationships. And don't get me wrong, I've figured out a balance much more now than I've probably ever had through experience, but where I have a great personal relationship with my team. But we do have goals and we do have objectives, and we work for a large organization that has a mission and vision. I do think, to restate this, is that it's important to know what your mission is and how it aligns with your company's before you start looking for strategies on how to manage. I think who am I? Like let's dial this in first, and then when you show up to work, at least you have kind of your guiding principles, so to speak, that you're going to follow.
Yeah.
So I want to land the plane, but one of the things that occurs to me just hearing you talk about this is that there's another factor here, and that's capacity. And that is, if you don't really accomplish much and you don't really love much, you can kind of stay in the middle easily. But as soon as you start pushing for big results and deep relationships, like, you create a chasm, and there's a level of capacity. So how would somebody grow their capacity in results and relationships?
You want to add to that? While I think through an answer here.
Well, I mean, I think
it's a problem.
yeah, I think if you're in part, if you're developing your capacity in anything, right? And in this case, we're talking about results and relationships. You have to either be in relationship with or follow or learn from people who are doing it at a higher level than you. Because there's people out there who are reaching for really big results and really deep relationships, and they have them.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, okay, well, how are they doing that? First of all, believing it's possible. Second of all, seeking out those that are proving that it's possible.
Sure.
And then learning, just like we're learning from Big
Yes.
Mike, right? Yeah. Like, wow, you do it so naturally, but how can we pull apart the pieces so we can do it better like Mike,
Yes.
right? Whatever that may look like, whichever side you lean toward, you might start with the other, but then make sure that you're not swinging the pendulum too much. So that's kind of my initial thought is like, hey, who's doing it that we can go and learn from, right? At this size or scale or size of organization or season, right? You think about people who got great results and maintain great relationships through a season like COVID or something like that, right? So depending on what the circumstances are, how do we continue to be followers, even while we're being leaders of those that are doing it better than us?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me give it a shot. And thank you for buying me some time, Chase.
Dude, we're gonna
It's a
edit
good,
out
no,
the
it's a,
time
it's
anyways.
it's a very good question. I would say I'm of the understanding that there's 24 hours in a day. We got to sleep, we got to eat, and you've heard this. But I don't think there's a silver bullet. I think sometimes what we look at when you see these superstars who are digging deep in every conversation, they hit all the goals. I think they're also in a season. It's something I think about. Because you can only do it for so long. You know, the average executive tenure right now for Fortune 500, I want to say it's less than 3 years
Yeah, it's very short.
before they're going to move into something else. And the reason that I think this is not a psychology study, you can only run so fast in one direction for so long before you got to be picked up off the track, or whether it's the organization picking you up off the track or you're doing it, and be put it on another track. And so I think in that 24 hours, I don't think it's always possible. I think you can't have it all. You've got to find balance. I think 24 in those and again I'm going to keep saying that, but in those 24 hours, I can give my heart to so much in my drive, and I definitely you kind of self-allocate that, so to speak, in your mind without knowing it, because you want to be relational with your team.
Totally.
You want to have a relationship there. You want to hit your goals, and I have to probably dampen the producer in me sometimes, because I definitely have a top contributor mindset.
Yeah.
But I know that there's only so much I can do, and I have to find a balance for all of this. So that's kind of it almost sounds like a cop out, right? Like, but I don't think everyone's doing it.
Well, it makes me think of, if you look at this like a sprinter, but you don't realize it, but you just signed up for a 200-mile ultra marathon, you're going to have a really fast, really rude awakening.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I can think about how do I grow my capacity, so what I'm hearing is, what does it look like for me to grow my capacity, put myself in relationship with people who are modeling this? And then at what level can I now and in the future operate for a very long period of time? That's maybe my growth journey.
So I'm going to give one more perspective on this, and this is the W2 guy in me that's going to share this. One of the ways I did it wrong, and this is I would say a success story. So this is an interview. This is the story I'm sharing. Is that when I first started as an individual contributor, we grew business exponentially our first 2 years. I mean, it was double digit. All the numbers were hit halfway through the year. It was pretty remarkable. Pretty remarkable experience to be part of that. And everyone's kind of had a season of that where you've really, hopefully you've had a season of that where you get to really just knock the goals out of the water.
Yeah.
And so inside of that, a habit that I developed was not utilizing my team. And so wasn't using, and from a corporate perspective is that you've got X amount of resources, right? These organizations, they have a team for everything with professionals that do, they set up the account, let's say, or they do the admin portion of stuff. You have a customer service team that might do the orders that you get from the business that you've won or whatever it might be. And I said, I can do it all. I'm more special than everyone. Yeah. And I'm Mike Schramm, and I'm gonna be the Mr. Contributor. And that worked for a long time. It worked for probably 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then we had a certain dollar amount where I couldn't do it.
Oh, yeah.
And I learned that I was flooded, and I wasn't that good at any of those supporting roles in the first place. I still didn't know how to do a pivot table on a spreadsheet, but I was watching videos on how to do it because for some reason I thought it was a good thing to take ownership of that.
Sure.
And so one of the best decisions I made, this is probably only 3 years ago. This isn't like, I wasn't 19. I was 3.
I didn't make any good decisions.
Yeah, this is 3 years ago. And I really relinquished that. Mm-hmm. And I had to say, hey, there's teams for this. And I had to really let them have it and start developing them. Because, again, going back to my personal mission and being a Christian is like, I've got to put faith in them to develop other people.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's not just about the business I'm building. It's not about me. And so I had this selfishness I developed by being a contributor that I had to let go of and say, hey, no, this is your part of our business. It's not mine.
Yeah.
It's the organization.
Well, it strikes me as such a great starting point for deepening relationship, empowering others, trusting them with their part in the team, and then watching your relationships flourish versus like, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
Right? Like you could be a lover of people and not build relationships only because I won't let Reed do his part in whatever we're doing.
I'm like,
right?
give me the ball. Thanks for asking about my fishing trip, but give me the ball.
Yeah.
Like I want to go. I want to do something.
So to add to that, the question earlier when I mentioned 24 hours a day, the reason I put these things together is because we have only limited time. If you're not leveraging a team that's there for you, and you're not growing, and you're not getting those deeper conversations, and you're not seeing that development, that's on you. It's on us, right? And so I guess part of that answer, kind of to bring that one back, is that as soon as I started relying more on teams, whether they're good, whether they're bad, regardless of my opinion or organizational opinion on them, really starting treating them like A players, and they started becoming what that actually was. They started becoming those A players. And so I would say, again, a long-winded answer, folks, but that's something that I found some success in, is making sure you're leveraging the resources that you have, regardless of the state that they're in.
I love it, man. Yeah. Mike, we're going to continue in relationship and talk about this more, but secretly, maybe not so secretly anymore. I'm just going to mine you for this because it's, like Chase said, I experience this every time I talk to you. It's not just like, oh, I think you might do this because you told me a story about your business. It's I literally get to experience how you draw people into relationships. So thank you so much for taking the time today just to share a little bit about your world and doing this.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to the next time, and I appreciate it, guys.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for listening to the Sherpa Leadership Podcast. If today's episode inspired you in any way, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, share it with a fellow leader. You can find more resources and tools at SherpaConsultingGroup.com. And remember, leadership is a journey. Every step you take matters. So keep climbing, and we'll see you next time.